the meaning of the Pi App Studio revenue model, and how the top 100 mainnet apps will transform the world through the Grand Open Mainnet. The recent disclosure of the Pi App Studio revenue model, 70% to developers and 30% to Pi Network, is not a routine policy update. It is a structural declaration. Pi is no longer positioning itself as a platform that hosts apps. It is positioning itself as an economic operating system. That 30% is not shareholder profit. It is not rent extraction. It is the operating cost of a living economy, covering infrastructure, security, settlement, identity, and network integrity. The remaining 70% becomes the only legitimate arena for competition. Every business must survive inside that space, not by hidden fees, not by artificial markups, but by real efficiency. This creates a radical condition. Costs that used to hide inside prices, middlemen, advertising waste, financial friction, inventory risk, can no longer be concealed. Any industry built on inefficiency becomes mathematically unviable. Pi App Studio is not an app builder. Pi App Studio is often described as a no-code tool or a developer convenience layer. That description misses its true function. Pi App Studio does not create apps. It creates economic actors. When someone builds an app, they are not just launching software. They are entering an economy. App usage becomes measurable contribution. App revenue becomes compensation strictly tied to real transactions. Most importantly, token issuance is structurally blocked. Value cannot be fabricated. It must be earned through use. This single rule eliminates entire categories of speculative behavior. Apps built on hype collapse naturally. Token-driven communities lose their artificial foundation. What survives is utility that people actually choose. The confusion and slow growth many see today is not failure. It is purification. The system is burning off what cannot function under real economic rules. The true meaning of the top 100 mainnet apps. When Pi speaks of 100 utility apps, many imagine demos, tools, or community features. That is not the goal. The top 100 are not apps. They are commerce engines. They represent the minimum number of functioning economic circuits required for an economy to self-accelerate. Each of them must satisfy strict, implicit conditions. They must accept real Pi payments. They must deliver real goods or services. They must complete fulfillment, digital or physical. They must operate with minimal inventory. They must survive only by user choice. Together, they form a certified zone where Pi can circulate safely at scale. Once this zone exists, the Open Mainnet is no longer a launch event. It becomes an inevitability. The economy is already alive. The Grand Open Mainnet simply exposes it to the outside world. What the Grand Open Mainnet will change. First, it will eliminate redundant industries. Multi-layer distribution chains, advertising-heavy platforms, financial rent seekers, and inventory hoarding systems will not collapse because of ideology, but because of price competition. They will simply be too expensive to exist. Second, production will be reconfigured. Build-to-order manufacturing will replace mass stockpiling. Factory direct sales will bypass distribution layers. Regional logistics will integrate directly with digital demand. Waste will become a competitive disadvantage. Third, the concept of the company itself begins to dissolve. Competition will no longer be company versus company, or platform versus platform. It becomes contribution versus contribution, efficiency versus efficiency. Firms stop being sovereign entities and become functional nodes in a larger system. Fourth, shareholder capitalism begins to weaken. Profits must exist inside the 70%. Price inflation becomes structurally difficult. Monopoly defense becomes unstable. What disappears is not profit, but extractive profit. This is not a political revolution. It is a change in the cost function of reality. The civilizational meaning. What emerges is not a new ideology. It is a new operating mode. Open entry replaces gatekeeping. Usage replaces speculation. Contribution replaces branding. Flow replaces hoarding. Participation is voluntary. Survival is based on choice. Value moves in circles, not pyramids. Humanity does not shift into shared production because it is morally superior. It shifts because it is cheaper, faster, and more efficient than everything it replaces. Final thought. The disclosure of the Pi App Studio revenue model and the activation of the top 100 mainnet apps do not mark the rise of another platform. They mark the birth of an economic operating system. The Grand Open Mainnet is not a beginning. It is the moment the outside world sees what has already been running. This transition cannot be stopped, not because it is idealistic, but because it is more efficient than anything that came before it.